Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jewish World Weekly on I-24 News. I'm Emily Francis. Every week, we focus on stories, issues, and personalities of Jewish interest here in Israel and throughout the diaspora, the global Jewish community. And as always, we start with our top 5 items in the Jewish world, presented by Lynn Plothmeyer. Hi, Lynn.
Thanks, Emily. Here are the top 5 items in the Jewish world this week. Northwestern University has agreed to pay $75 million to the Trump administration, and in return, nearly $800 million in frozen federal research funding is being restored. As part of the deal, Northwestern is voiding its 2024 Deering Meadow Agreement that had promised dedicated space for Muslim and North African students, a pact made to end pro-Palestinian encampment. Jewish activist groups praised the move, thanking their federal partners for their, quote, continued commitment to protecting Jewish students and faculty. Dublin city councillors are accusing Israel and a Zionist lobby of meddling after a plan to remove Chaim Herzog's name from a local park was abruptly sent back to committee. The move delays the vote but has fueled heated debate over the Irish Jewish history and political pressure. Newly declassified Argentine archives show that Josef Mengele, the Auschwitz doctor known as the Angel of Death, lived far more openly in Argentina than previously believed. After entering the country under a false name in 1949, he soon dropped the alias and used his real identity, renting homes, running a small medical lab business, and interacting with local authorities. The documents show officials knew who he was but failed to act, and even dismissed an extradition request as political that allowed Mengele to slip out of Argentina, eventually fleeing to Paraguay and later Brazil, where he lived under new aliases until his death in 1979. In one of the week's strangest stories, a Namibian politician legally named Adolf Hitler Unona has changed his name. Unona, who has been an elected official for years, says his father gave him the name without understanding its history. He's long insisted he has zero connection to Nazi ideology, but the name followed him everywhere, sparking global headlines every election cycle. This week, he officially dropped Hitler, calling it an unwanted shadow he no longer wants in his personal life or political career. Legendary playwright Tom Stoppard has died at 88. Born in Czechoslovakia, Stoppard and his family had to flee Nazi Europe when he was just a baby. Stoppard later became one of the English-speaking world's greatest writers, known for hits like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, Arcadia, and the Oscar-winning Shakespeare in Love. Later in life, he rediscovered his Jewish roots and explored that history in his acclaimed play Leopoldstadt, which earned him a Tony Award. Those are the top 5 items in the Jewish world this week. Back to you, Emily.
The Trump administration is ramping up its campaign against rising anti-Semitism nationwide. And one of the officials driving that effort is Leo Terrell, the senior counsel to the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights and chair of the Justice Department's task force combating anti-Semitism. Terrell sat down with I-24 News senior U.S. correspondent Mike Wagenheim to discuss how the administration plans to confront the surge in anti-Semitic incidents and what resources the Justice Department is deploying, plus how far it's prepared to go.
In terms of the anti-Semitism cases on campus, we've seen those demands in the tens, sometimes hundreds of billions of dollars in wanting to settle these legal cases. Some universities have acquiesced, others, though, are challenging those in the courts. What is your feeling as to how successful the Trump administration is going to be getting these cases successfully through the courts? Because some judges so far have, expressed reservations about the legal legs that these cases are leaning on.
Well, let me tell you right now, President Trump has like a 92% winning record at the Supreme Court. So let's give them these initial victories at the district court level. President Trump is going all the way. He's not going to stop at the district court level or the Court of Appeals level. And I can guarantee you that President Trump is going to pursue every avenue legally, and if it takes up to the Supreme Court, he will do it. And his winning record at the Supreme Court is very, very good. And that's why these universities, before they get to the Supreme Court, many of them will try to resolve these cases.
Is there any concern at all? Because it's not just anti-Semitism that the administration is trying to tackle on these campuses. It's things like faculty that kind of are out of control to some extent. Middle East studies departments that have lost their way in terms of their attitude toward Israel and with the truth in general. Do you feel that there is a reaction from the court system to an overreach, that maybe it's too much of trying to control the academic platform?
Well, let me tell you right now, the answer to your question is no. Because if these faculties are violating civil rights under Title VI, Title VII, where you have faculty members being harassed because of their Jewish belief, Jewish religion, no way there is too much overreach. In my opinion, we're not aggressive enough, because some of these schools, some of these universities are allowing this to occur, this anti-Semitic behavior that basically occurs. Not only students are being attacked, but faculty members. And the curriculum, which I think should be really reviewed, has a tendency to have an anti-Semitic bias, which I find offensive and wrong. These universities have been used to indoctrinate hate, and now they're targeting K-12. And what I feel that if there's going to be a settlement, make sure there's safeguards in place where kids, students, faculty members, and anyone who's of Jewish religion not be intimidated or harassed on any college campus. And that goes for K-12 as well.
The flip side of that, I'm interested in your opinion on this specifically, because I feel like of any Trump administration official, you've probably been closer than anybody to the Jewish community this year since the president retook office. There's a case right now with the University of Pennsylvania where the Trump administration is requesting the records and documents and personal information of Jewish students, Jewish faculty, in order to pursue anti-Semitic cases and allegations of discrimination. Yet some of those faculty and students say, hey, list of Jewish students, that sets off alarm bells. How do you react to those faculty and staff, even in a situation where the administration means well, that they're saying, hey, we don't want lists of Jewish students and faculties being forced out of the university?
Well, I'm sure, I haven't seen the arguments pro and con, but there's privacy issues, and I'm sure that there are issues that can provide the requested information and yet protect certain privacy rights. I'm assuming that some of the objections are not based on the Trump administration's goal to fight anti-Semitism, but related to areas that goes outside that, and I would think of privacy issues, and not to set a precedent for something that is unrelated to the cause of this particular action, fighting anti-Semitism.
Our next guest wears many, many hats. He's a lawyer, politician, podcaster, lobbyist, and dad of several kids. Welcome from Miami, Gabriel Groisman. Hello, busy man.
Yeah, how are you? Good morning.
Good to see you. So we just heard from Mike Wagenheim, had an interview with Leo Terrell. From your experience where you were, a mayor for quite some time, what was your experience then compared to now what you're feeling as a Jewish person in Florida and Miami?
First of all, I'll say that Leo Terrell is fantastic. I had him on my podcast Standpoint a few months ago, and he's doing just incredible work. I've been in touch with him and his team, Harmeet Dillon, the whole team there. They're really, their hands are all the way in. Their team is 100% in fighting against the scourge of anti-Semitism, using the tools of the Justice Department, the levers of the Justice Department, as heavily as possible to protect the Jewish community. Look, things have changed a lot in the last 10 years. We've been seeing a rise of anti-Semitism in the U.S., almost doubling every single year over the last 8 years. Of course, after October 7th, it's gone even to other levels. Most people weren't paying attention. Before then, the whole world today is paying attention. Thankfully, I'm actually here in New Orleans today with the Combat Anti-Semitism movement. We have a mayor's summit with over 150 mayors here. And it's just indicative of the fact that the government here in the United States as a whole, of course, there are exceptions, are really trying to push back against this anti-Semitism. We have to make it, from the Jewish community's perspective, we have to make people realize it's not just about the 6 million or so Jews that live here in the United States, but it's about America at large and what it means to be American, what kind of society we want to live in here. And anti-Semitism is the antithesis to that.
Now, with that said, you are at this big mayors conference, a lot of support within the African American community of mayors. I mean, what are you hearing, on the floor? Do you feel that there is more of a concerted effort to be supportive and, to manage, constituents in each of their individual cities?
Absolutely. But first and foremost, I think from the Jewish community perspective, we cannot assume, because it would be wrong to assume, that people are focusing on these issues as closely as we are. They're not. So we have to first do the work to educate, to build relationships, to explain what's happening, what the meaning of the state of Israel and Zionism is to the Jewish community, right? Explaining why these protesters are out there, for example, here in New Orleans, protesting against an anti-Semitism conference. It makes no sense to them, right? So we have to explain to them, start from square one, obviously in a respectful and loving manner, but then also push them, because this is something that they know starts with the Jews but doesn't end with the Jews. They do understand that. They do understand hate, and they understand their responsibility to keep their communities safe. When you're talking about local elected officials, governors or mayors, their first responsibility is to keep their citizens and residents safe. And that way they can then accomplish all those other things they want to accomplish. If they're dealing with safety, they can't deal with economics and other things that they're trying to deal with. So they are there. They realize they have to deal with it. They realize there's no way to appease these folks that are out there on the streets, that they must be dealt with in a serious manner. And that's why they're here. And we're seeing this not just today, throughout the year, elected officials really trying to make a difference.
And that said, we don't need to delve too much into the situation in New York, but we're seeing, concerning incidents, even, with the Mamdani win. Yes, he hasn't started his term yet, but, we're seeing, incidents at Upper East Side synagogues. There are now, solidarity marches to, contest, what is happening. But how can tools, police work, whatever, be done to help secure the security when, like you said, there is a responsibility for so many citizens and the diversity in each of these cities?
First of all, unfortunately, the situation in New York City and in many cities in the United States is going to get worse. The anti-Semitism is going to continue to rise. We have tacit approval or explicit approval sometimes from people like Mamdani. To answer your question directly, that law enforcement and mayors need to understand that they can use a tool called time, place, and manner restrictions. It's well established in the Supreme Court law. People can protest, but you can tell them how they can protest and where they can protest. They don't need to be, like you see in the images you're showing right now, at the front door of a preschool, Jewish preschool or a synagogue where people are coming in and out. You can have them protesting a few blocks away behind barricades, so you keep the peace. Also, there are limits to free speech. They're also well established. Incitement to violence, for example, right? These are things that are well established. Law enforcement and elected officials have to have the courage to use it and to have a heavy hand. And when you see cities like South Florida and Miami, where I live, and the local mayors, there's 34 small cities there. People don't realize that's how the county is made up. But everybody has a heavy hand on this. And we're going to see protests this week during the art weekend, Art Basel weekend, against the Israeli artists. But you're going to see how government and police respond.
Yeah, I mean, is there preparation for that? Because Art Basel is clearly one of the most, famous art events in the world. There every year a lot of people come. I mean, is there proper, how do you plan for security now with that kind of existential kind of threat at a place that's supposed to celebrate culture?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that the law enforcement community in South Florida is as strong as it gets. It's a partnership between the federal government and the local police departments, all working together hand in hand. There's a lot of cybersecurity, cyber intelligence at hand. They know what's going on. Some of it's explicit and pretty easy to find out. Other of it is not. I can tell you there was a big protest planned in Miami Beach, and there is a response that's planned that I won't share here on television, but it'll be this weekend. And the Jewish community in South Florida does not sit on our hands.
All right, Gabe Groisman, thank you so much. It's good to see you, and I hope I'll see you next time you come to Israel.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
A Jewish book subscription program is trying to end the chapter of anti-Semitism in the publishing industry, marking the centennial of one of the Jewish Book Council's foundational programs. NU Reads delivers books bi-monthly with an aim to boost writers and to send a message to publishers. Joining us now from New York is Naomi Firestone Teeter, the CEO of the Jewish Book Council. Hello, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So
Apologies.
yeah, sounds like somebody has some laryngitis. So sorry about the timing. Meanwhile, let's talk about Jewish people. We've been authors, thought leaders, scholars for centuries. Of course, it's evolved throughout the centuries as publishing standards and technology has changed. But when did you, in this world, start really noticing a trend in anti-Semitism, or at least, not willing to look at certain authors because they're Jewish?
Yeah, so this has been an issue for some time at Jewish Book Council. I remember speaking with Deborah Harris, at least a decade ago about the issue of of authors writing in Hebrew, Israeli writers getting published in the U.S., and we've seen the trend grow over the years. But for us, on October 7th, it became very clear that the trend was going to expand in ways that we wouldn't have predicted necessarily before the 7th, but we were prepared. We started seeing industry colleagues and authors post resistance is justified. I said what I said on October 7th itself, and so we knew we had to quickly respond and support this field that we care so deeply about.
So tell us, as far as, publishing companies, we see so many best-selling books out there. How is the protocol when you're talking about things, in publishing? Do few authors actually get through, and then it's that much harder of a chance if you are in the Jewish space?
Yeah, so publishing is a several-year timeline for the most part. So some of the things that we're seeing today being published are not necessarily the books that were acquired after the 7th. And so there's that piece to contend with. But generally speaking, we've seen more hesitation around Jewish themes, scrutiny about how authors' identities are perceived, a narrower sense of what kind of Jewish stories are acceptable. And I will also say that this is not something that's happening across the board. The industry is huge and it's varied, but we have seen cases where Jewish authors feel their work is being read through a political lens rather than through an artistic or literary one, and being treated with a litmus test that other authors are not being subject to. So
to also tell us about the initiative, the New Reads initiative, aiming to bolster Jewish writers, of course, and to send a bold message to publishers that they won't be ignored.
Yeah, so this is our new bi-monthly curated book subscription initiative. It was created as part of the 100th anniversary of Jewish Book Month in partnership with author Tova Mervis. Every 2 months, subscribers are going to receive a beautifully curated Jewish book selected by our team. But the heart of the program is simple. We're creating a direct line between readers and writers and signaling to the publishing world that there's real and enthusiastic audience for Jewish storytelling. And it also builds community. People are reading together, discussing together, and discovering authors they might not otherwise find. For us, this is a really joyful way to meet this moment. And instead of focusing solely on what's not working, we're building something that does, which is a growing and vibrant community of readers who want to invest in Jewish storytelling and want to bring them into their homes.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Naomi Firestone Teeter, and please rest your voice. You have a lot to say.
Thank you.
You need to rest your voice.
Thank you.
Park Avenue Synagogue in New York City is one of the most well-known conservative synagogues in the world, and its cantor is bringing a unique twist to some classic prayers. Take a listen. Joining us now from New York is cantor Ozzie Schwartz of Park Avenue Synagogue. Hello, and thank you for being here.
Hi, Emily. Thank you for having me.
You have such a beautiful voice, and, Bruce doesn't have anything on you. Let's start at that. I'm very impressed.
That's a big statement. Thank you. That's the biggest compliment I've received. Thank you.
So tell us, your grandfather was a cantor. You're Israeli. You grew up here. You moved to the States. Was he an inspiration to you? Did you know at a young age that music and singing was in your DNA?
Well, I didn't, but I guess my grandfather knew, and most importantly, my grandmother knew. So I think she always, that legacy of my grandfather, who unfortunately passed away when I was young, it kind of carried, and through my childhood, right? They always told me, hey, you're going to be a cantor, you're going to be a cantor. And eventually after high school, I figured, maybe I should explore this further, and I served in the IDF as a cantor, and then from there, just everything just kind of aligned.
So explain why spreading your wings in New York City. I mean, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. I mean, clearly you've been able to take it to a different level, bring some creative momentum to what you're doing. Explain why it's such a liberating place for you to express yourself.
Sure. So look, again, I grew up in Israel in a very sheltered community, in a kind of a modern Orthodox environment. And, at some point, I felt like the religious values and my kind of modern values did not really align, when I actually discovered that Judaism is much broader and has, so much more ways of expression and in a way that align with my values, and that's where kind of Park Avenue Synagogue reached out to me in my late 20s to move to New York and become their senior cantor.
Wow!
And I have to say, it's been a very interesting and wonderful journey. We grow together, and I appreciate the community here and the love and for Jewish music and for culture and for Israel and for Judaism.
So also, it's cool. We're seeing so many more religious leaders, rabbis, cantors, that are finding a way to connect to young people, to bring the hip factor, which clearly you do. Explain how, as we evolve into modern times, it doesn't have to sound, like it did back in the olden days. You could make it much more, interactive, people dancing. It really, really helps release the spirit and the soul.
Yeah, Emily, it's a great question, because on the one hand, right, my job as a cantor is a carrier of tradition, right? We talked about my grandfather's legacy, about the way of reciting the prayers that we believe is very, very old, and I have to cherish this and treasure this and keep it. And at the same time, we live in New York City. We fight for people's time and attention. And if we want people in our environment to show up to services and to be engaged in their Judaism, it gotta be good. It gotta appeal to their music sensibilities of today. And as you said, young people, right? You gotta find ways to connect with them. And that's where, we like to bridge between the tradition and our traditional music, and of course, the culture that we live in. And that, of course, includes pop culture as well. So, if it's a B'nai Mitzvah student in such a formative age, and there's certain music that they like, and when you bring that music to their service, you just win their hearts, and that buys you kind of the credit to have them excited and curious about our tradition. So I think that's where it really comes from. To be very clear, I always think about this as the cherry on top of the cake, right? Our entire service doesn't look like Demon Hunters or right? It's a very traditional service, and we create new music. We invest a lot about the worship experience to make it really, really relevant and upbeat and joyful and reflective and all of these things. And then, of course, we put on top of that cake something that people can really relate to and connect to.
Well, and I imagine, this year, the high holidays were, that much more important in light of, the past 2 years and what was going on with the election. And you feel that more people are finding their way into your doors in light of what New York City has been like?
Absolutely. Look, people need, unfortunately, for the Jewish community here in New York, people need that connection. They need the community. They need a safe space, a sanctuary from what's going on otherwise in the world. And the question of Jewish identity is becoming more important than ever. Look, to be honest, we've seen this after October 7th. Our community is very much connected to Israel, loves Israel. I'm an Israeli myself, so obviously we've seen a lot of people looking for that connection, coming to synagogue in numbers that we haven't seen before. I also want to add that since for the last over 10 years now, we've been streaming our services and using technology and social media to really find people where they are and bring them close to our community. And we've seen that trend of more and more engagement really from all over the world, but especially, as you said, here in New York, people show up. They need to be around community.
Thank you so much, Cantor Ozzy Schwartz. I look forward to my next trip to New York, and I'll come to Shabbat services.
You're always welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. And that is all for this week's episode of Jewish World Weekly. We sure hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to head over to the I-24 News, a YouTube channel, website, of course, our social media platforms to catch up on previous episodes. Thank you again for watching. I'm Emily Francis, and shalom from Tel Aviv.